Hello, my name is Wendy Potomsky and I'm the managing partner and owner of Retake Furniture Rentals. Retake is once again a proud supporter of the Canadian Film Festival and is working to contribute to the Canadian film and TV industry by making it an easy and sustainable place to do business. Retake provides sustainable short and long-term furniture rental options to meet production schedules and product needs. Retake also understands the importance of set design and the dynamic nature of the film and TV industry, which is why we created a company to specifically support Canadian filmmakers. Retake can assist you in setting up your production office with sustainable alternatives to keep your team working safely as we all head back to work. We use sustainable approaches to minimize product going to landfill, which means any product supplied by Retake is helping to support the circular economy. Our in-house upholstery services can tailor our product to meet your set design requirements and match your color schemes. Contact us to discuss your office furniture needs. Our goal is to help you get back to work as safely and efficiently as possible. Stay safe, everyone, and enjoy the films and shorts at this year's Canadian Film Festival.
Hi. um, Take two. Hi. So yeah, I feel like I'm excited to chat with both of you about like what you guys are doing and the whole wearing multiple hat things, because I feel like I know you guys from the space, but I've never actually got a chance to like talk to you. Sujith, I feel like I've been like kind of in satellite on set with you, maybe once upon a time. But yeah, so like if we want to introduce ourselves to each other, I guess, and like what we do.
Go ahead.
Oh, yeah.
Who goes first? Okay, I'll start. So my name is Sujith VARUGHESE. I'm the world's oldest living visible minority member of the Writers Guild of Canada and of probably even ACTRA, maybe not. Phil Aiken may be an older member than I am, but he actually guest starred in the very first TV drama I ever wrote for CBC television in 1980. So I was 12 at the time. Anyway, so that's how I started. I started as a writer. I work as a writer. I work as an actor, and happily I make a living, and I'm happy to be here.
And Katie?
Great. Hi, I'm so happy to be speaking with you both. I'm such a big fan of both of your work, so this is really thrilling to be here today. My name is Katie Boland. I'm an actress, writer, and director. The majority of my career has been as an actress, and in the past, I would say 5 years, I branched out as a screenwriter and a filmmaker, and the film that I have in the Canadian Film Fest is called We're All in This Together. I adapted it, directed it, played twins in it, and de facto produced it.
Come on, spread the work around here, you know, like there's other people who need a job.
De facto produced, but like the thing is, so like, hi everyone. So yeah, my name is AISHA EVELYNA, and I'm an actor, filmmaker, so writer, director, as well as festival programmer, which people don't usually they're like, you do that? And I'm like, I love programming. And when you talk about like spreading the jobs around, de facto producing, like more often than not, like I feel like for myself, when I took on like wanting to make a film, was because I was kind of like not crazy about the auditions I was getting, and also very lonely, because filmmaking is very like, there's a lot of camaraderie, right? And so if you want to get your thing made and you can't find a producer, you de facto produce it because you gotta. But I guess maybe you can both kind of speak to your own journey with producing, and also like how you guys got into wearing multiple hats.
Well, you know, I'm so old. There were no brown actors when I started, so I didn't think that I would be an actor. I did a theater degree, but I really started as a screenwriter, and that's how I broke in, was as a writer, and with no intention of ever becoming an actor. What happened was that the second thing I ever wrote was a movie for CBC television. This was back when CBC was producing in-house. And it was probably the first multicultural romantic comedy movie that CBC ever made. And I think it was the last multicultural romantic comedy movie that CBC ever made. And we needed to cast it. And it was about a brown guy who'd grown up in Canada. And, you know, he had a white girlfriend his parents didn't know about, and he didn't know they were arranging a marriage for him with a girl from India, and, you know, hijinks ensue. So when it came down to casting it, we couldn't find anybody. They almost cast a white guy and painted him brown until I begged them to let me audition, and they let me audition. I got the part. So I kind of wrote myself into becoming an actor, and so that's, you know, 38, 30, whatever. No, it's 40 years ago, and you know, I've written a lot of stuff since then. I wrote a lot of Canadian television. I was one of the writers of the original Fraggle Rock series. I wrote 10 of those, and then but I was always acting from then on too. So between the two, writing and acting is how I've made a living, and some directing. I went to the Canadian Film Centre. I was the first minority to go to the Canadian Film Centre as a director and a writer, and so I did some directing as well. And you know, it's kind of the lesson I have to learn is diversification is what allowed me to survive in the arts, you know, because one year the acting is up and another year the writing is up, and some years nothing's up, and some years, you know, you're juggling two jobs at the same time. And, you know, it allowed me to make a living without having to do other things, because I was required to be diversified in my skill set.
That's like it's so interesting you say that, because like I was stuck in traffic earlier this morning, so I'm on the 10, and then I was just like, what do I say today? And when you say diversification, I like that popped into my head when I was like, okay, like I was like trying to like get my thoughts together, being like, all right, I'm going to do this panel talk to these really talented people, and it's like diversification, like I need to secure a bag. And so it was kind of just like and so like we talk about de facto producing, it's like also, this sounds bad, but it's like, I have skills, how can I monetize them? And like, no shade to anybody that works in restaurants. I worked in restaurants for years. My feature that I like wrote that I'm developing right now is like half of it is set in a restaurant, but like, I was like, I don't want to go back there because it'll fry your nerves. So like, how do I diversify? And it kind of just became like this thing where it's like, out of necessity, it's like, well, I'm okay at this and I will get better at this. It's fun. You're going to pay me money to do this. Okay, sure. I do that now, you know, kind of falling into it. Katie, can you speak to any of your experiences when it comes to like how your acting background like influenced like how you got your start when it comes to filmmaking?
Yeah, I mean, so much of what you both said really resonates with me. Obviously, I think I come at it from a very different lived experience. Like I was born into a filmmaking family. I'm a white person, so I came at it from a place of privilege to begin with. But I definitely felt, I would say it was in my early 20s, similar to what you're saying. I was like, I need to find another way to secure a bag. Like it's just, I also felt like I had been an actress since I was a small child. And I thought like, I have skills, I think, that aren't being used. I want a little more agency in my life. I don't want to be told so much like, you're not pretty enough for this, or this director didn't see you for this. So it really came out of a place of sort of necessity and feeling like I had more that I wanted to contribute. And I always say to actors, if there are any actors watching this, and I'm sure you two really relate to this, actors have a lot of skills that are not always used in an audition per se. Like if you're an actor, you're a hustler in a million ways. So I often say to my other, particularly my actress friends who feel kind of stuck, but actor friends too, like you likely have an enormous skill set that you're not utilizing. I think actors make great producers because they're often extroverted and outward facing. And honestly, sometimes you just want something to fill your day as an actor. So I don't think I could have stayed in this industry had I not diversified and really leaned into other strengths that I had and other things that I wanted to say and do.
Well, you know, for me, after 40 years of doing this, it made me realize that it's all the same job.
Yeah.
Whether it's acting, writing, directing, editing, it's all storytelling. And I don't, I don't have the luxury of being just an actor, and didn't have the luxury of being just a writer. What I had the luxury of is learning what storytelling was, so that regardless of the job I got, I applied that skill to the job. So my approach as an actor is really as a storyteller. My approach as a writer is a storyteller. It's just storytelling at a different phase of the process. So writing is storytelling before the camera rolls, directing is storytelling behind the camera, acting is storytelling in front of the camera. And I think if I didn't understand story, I wouldn't be an actor. I never even studied acting. It's really my background as a storyteller that enables me to be an actor. And I've worked as an editor, and I've worked as and if you go to sets and meet the people who are doing it in other departments, the costumer is a storyteller, the lighting designer is a storyteller. He is telling the story through wardrobe. The lighting designer is telling story through light, and it's why that show looks different than another show, because the story is different. It's not just aesthetic. It is a storytelling decision that each department is making. And so, if I could, I'd put professional storyteller as my profession. and all of the hats are different hats, but the job is the same job.
Yeah, it's so interesting that you say that, because I've always said and felt that I'm using the same parts of my brain, whether I'm acting or writing or directing or producing. Like it all feels like it comes from one place inside me.
Well, you're one quote unquote artist.
Yeah, exactly.
Right?
Yeah. Yeah.
I can't compartmentalize the acting part of me from the writing part of me from the anything else part of me. They're the same. It's all the same muscle. It's just, instead of doing a bench press, I'm doing a deadlift, but it's, we're doing the same. It's the same job. And it's extremely liberating knowing that.
It's interesting that you talk about the idea of like it's the same thing, and like liberation and being able to like use your voice. It sounds like it's like we have a voice. It just depends on like which medium you're going to use the voice. So when you talk about liberation, I'm like, oh yeah, it is freeing. And so I guess another thing I'm curious to hear about from both of you is kind of like how transitioning or like putting on another hat has kind of assisted your performance career, but also like how performance might have symbiotically helped another aspect. Because like when I started, so like it's interesting, Sujith, when you're talking about like they were about to paint a white presenting person brown, and it's like, no, don't do that. Like for me, it was kind of like colored along racial lines why I got into filmmaking, in the sense that like at the time, like I was with an agent who was a lovely person, but like it just like I was going out for things that I was like, this is not, blackness has so many varied facets, and like we're all snowflakes regardless of what color you are, and so I kind of was like just kind of frustrated with like always going in for like and I was getting great auditions, but it was just like this isn't making me feel empowered, and that's one of the reasons as to why I transitioned to writing something for myself, because I was like, I'm a human being like just like everyone else, and I wanted to see a story on screen that had nothing to do with a person's inherent otherness, like blackness, gayness, whatever. And so I found agency that way. So I guess I'm wondering, like, how have your lives both opened up for you both when it comes to transitioning? Like what did you find opened up for you for your career that you would never have expected when you transitioned?
Well,
was that a bad question?
It's a great question.
Here's what I would say. Here's what I would say about that. I have the world's worst show business name. And as soon as you see my name, he ain't a white guy. Before you even meet me, I'm probably not an Anglo-Saxon white guy. So automatically, whether I was writing or acting or whatever, you are expected to represent a particular thing and not be applicable to other things. Just from my name alone, before I walk into the room. Now that you know me, I grew up in Saskatoon, and I know more about that than I know about, Asia or India or wherever. Well, I was born there, but I didn't grow up there. But I have had to actually learn and express a part of my cultural background that I didn't grow up with in order to be employable. Now, that's an interesting journey to be on, because I speak English. This is the way I speak English. Yet I would probably say I have made a fairly good living playing characters who have an Indian accent, and I think I come by it honestly because I grew up with people who spoke with an accent. But I'm faking it. I'm performing it, and I think that's okay if I do it in a way that somebody who has an accent believes, right? If the Indian audience accepts me playing that part with an accent, which they do, then I'm okay. That's me delivering on a character who has an accent. And it's no different than when I was on The Expanse and I had to learn how to be a character who walked in low gravity. It's doing the job, right? So I've had to expand my definition of who I am to be as employable as I was expected to be. Now, the flip side of that is I wasn't given opportunities because of my name that others who didn't have a quote unquote ethnic name may have been considered for. Once I had dinner with Ben Kingsley, and Ben Kingsley's real name is Krishna Banji. And he told me that when he started acting, he used Krishna Banji and he never got cast. He changed his name to Ben Kingsley, and the next audition, he's in the Repertory Theatre in Britain. And that's the end of that story. He's Ben Kingsley. Now, he's a great actor. Would he have been as successful as Krishna Banji than as Ben Kingsley? He's not limited to playing Indian characters because his name is Ben Kingsley. But when it came time to cast the movie Gandhi, they knew that he was half Indian, and so it was an interesting choice to use him. So that's the flip side. I'm never going to be. I never get. Well, no, that's not true. For the first 25 years of my career, I wasn't considered for quote unquote non-ethnic characters as an actor. And I was expected as a writer to bring something like that to the party. Writing a story about immigrants or whatever. And the reason I kept through that restriction is that I worked for the Muppets. I wrote a TV series called Fraggle Rock, and Jim Henson didn't, there was no opportunity for that aspect of me to be placed in the show. And he taught me and accepted the other parts of me that I could bring to that. And that was early on in my career. So I knew that I was able to do all of those things. And it was just that the industry hadn't caught up to that level of diversity that I was offering. I'm happy to say that in the last 5, 6, 7 years, that barrier has broken down to some degree in my experience. So that characters, I just did a self-tape for a show where the character was written as a white guy. In fact, I was in a show, I auditioned, I auditioned for a show called The Girlfriend Experience. And I auditioned for a character who was an Indian immigrant. Girlfriend Experience is about high-end escorts. And I auditioned as a character who was a client, who was an Indian immigrant, on the phone to his wife in Mumbai while, about to do something. And it was like a three-line audition. And I thought, well, I have to nail this. and I didn't get the part. My agent called me and said, well, you didn't get that part. I said, oh, are you kidding? He says, no, they're going to cast you as another character who was originally written as white. He's the managing director of the law firm where the girl works during the day. And I said, well, do do they know that I don't speak with an accent? Because that's all they saw me do in the audition. And they said, oh yeah, they looked you up, you're fine. So that was a huge transition that I'm so happy took place, because that couldn't have happened 25 years ago, right? Where and that's still happening, where I get to audition for a character who's written currently as white, and you know, they may or may not change the name if they can't cast. Or I was in Suits and playing a judge named Judge Howard. You know, they didn't change the name, and it's fine. You know, I was in another movie called 22 Chaser, and my character's name was Polanski. And I get on set, and the lead actor, lovely guy, famous guy, he says, "You don't look like a Polanski." I said, "My mother's Indian, my father's Polish, end of story." And I made that up on the spot. Who knew? But, so you know what I'm saying? Like, there is a real, there are expectations, and then there are things that are changing now. And I'm happy I lasted long enough to see some of those changes.
Yeah, like you're talking about certain years, and I'm like, no shade. No, I'm not calling you old, but I was like, I wasn't alive then. And I'm like, damn, like you're an OG.
No.
Katie, what about you when it comes to like how filmmaking and like wearing other hats, writing, directing, producing has opened up your performance career for you? Can you speak to that for yourself?
Yeah, absolutely. And I apologize if there's a noise outside my building. I feel like someone's doing gardening. I'm sorry.
Listen,
bad timing.
Construction across, like literally, I keep putting myself on because someone is drilling right now. So like, I get it.
Like when you're filming and the guy starts mowing his lawn because he knows he can get $100 from the crew.
Like,
go throw $100 bill at him, see if he'll stop.
For sure. I might ask my partner to actually. Yeah, so I think that being a writer and a filmmaker has absolutely helped my acting career, because I just don't care anymore. Like, I care so much less. Any ounce of I'm enough, or I didn't that of like any way that acting can make you sort of a more craven or insecure individual is now completely gone from my life. And I feel so, I get so grateful that I get to exist sort of in this way now, where it's like, now my life is thinking like, how do I solve this story problem? Or how am I going to connect to this actor and help them get this scene right? So I think it's made me a more well-rounded individual for sure. And I think that has helped as far as acting, because I think that the best attitude that you can go into it with is like, who really cares? You're lucky to have me. Right. Yeah. You know, and I think as far as being a director, I know it's helped because I can talk to actors as an actor. And I think immediately, I'm sure you guys have had the same experience. I think actors respect you more immediately if you're like, I'm sorry, I need this in your close-up. Like, they feel like you're sort of a comrade in arms. So yeah, I think it's opened up my life in many ways that I'm really happy for.
One of the things that you just said that got me was like, not caring. So there's that, like, because I like in the sense that like every audition I get, I care as much as I need to, but then I'm like, I'm not like depending on booking this thing because I have something else that fills my cup. And I think it's twofold in the sense that I forget which writer tweeted this. It might've been Sorkin, I don't know, but he was just talking to writers, and he's like, people are like, writers are like sometimes known to be introverted. And he was like, yeah, you want to get your film made, you want to get your screenplay made, have an agent and like submit, do that thing, but also be doing like the networking thing, try and make it yourself filmmaking thing. It's like doing both. And I think like when it comes to like my filmmaking decision was also kind of just like a response to the industry. Right now, we're seeing like a lot of content that's centered around like voice-driven content, authenticity, where it's like, we want to hear from this community or this person because there's a voice here that like needs to be lifted. And so when you talk about like what's opened up, I kind of feel like like I didn't feel like I was like actively able to use my voice when I was auditioning for like which is also so tough because I grew up in the suburbs and like I do not sound like a Black American. Like I don't. And like when I say that, I mean like you will find Black Americans everywhere, and like some of them, yes, they do sound like me. But like I was bringing back a car somewhere. I think I was like at LAX, and I was like, you know what? Like I might just take the bus. And then he was like, if you do, like you're gonna go through like a rough neighborhood, so like just like don't open your mouth. And I was like, cool, 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 cool. I like it, Picasso. And so, so having said that, when you talk about what opens up for you, it's like getting it for myself. I feel like it was just me being in response to the industry. And also like me wanting to be on screen and like doing something where I felt like I was using my voice effectively. It's like filmmaking just like was the other silo. So there's like the have an audition and like go and like do them, and like it'd be great. It's great to book, obviously, and like that can also assist your career, but it's like having this other thing that like I do that I know I'm going to do regardless of if anybody gives me a part or not, because I can give myself a part always. And I think having that understanding is like, it does shift something for you. And then also some of the biggest creators we're seeing right now that are like really making waves. And like, we can walk this back even to like Lena Dunham and Girls, or like Michaela Cole, Issa Rae, Phoebe Waller-Bridge. They are all like actors / they do something else. And like, it was their story that got them forward, as opposed to being like, I don't know, Brenda on like blah, blah, blah show. So I guess there's always that. Next question I have for you guys is, because we did, and Sujith, you also talked about casting a little bit. And then also I'm curious about, Katie, your thoughts, because in like, as a director, you also probably have different ways that you see casting as well. When you're in your experience on indie film, can you tell us about like things that you would like to see changed in the industry when it comes to performance? Because you have this background knowledge, you have this background filmmaking knowledge. So with that, it's like, oh, there's a blind spot when it comes to how we do this thing as performers, but they're just not talking to each other. So I'm just curious about like things that you'd like to change, be it the casting process, like what do you want to change? What do you love about like, what do you love about it? Like, I'm just curious about like the realm of casting and like the blind spots of the industry and where you see room for improvement and how we can move forward in improving.
I don't know. I have a very unique experience, perhaps, but I work pretty steadily. I'm on it. You know, I make a living, and I work often enough. So I don't think it's my fault, but I must have done, I don't know, hundreds of self-tapes. I have never been cast from a self-tape.
Right.
So I really miss auditions where you're in the room, because that is, you know, that's closer to what the real job is. You know, you're working with a casting director, you're working with a director, you know, it's the same sort of thing. You take direction or you make a choice and you see how it lands in the room. And, you know, like that's the whole self-tape thing is such an artificial process that allows, I think, casting to get away with something that they couldn't get away with when in the olden days when we had to have real live auditions. Mm-hmm. And it allows them to do a volume business. It allows them to do, you know, to have somebody in their back pocket that they really want, but they're just going through the motions of having self-tapes. I've self-taped for a very big show multiple times. They make you put it on Vimeo with a password. I check the views, 0 views. They don't even look at them, right? And that's happened multiple times. So I am not really happy with this trend too. I mean, if there's an option for a Zoom audition, I'll take the Zoom audition over the self-tape, because at least it's, you know, they're showing up as much as I'm showing up. But the self-tape thing, I think, has created an artificial thing called a self-tape, which takes a certain skill to do, but isn't equivalent to what the old-fashioned audition did in prepping you for actually doing that job if you got the part. In other words, there's you know, you're in the room with a director perhaps, and so when you go to set, if he casts you, you've got a relationship with somebody that has, you know, supported your choices as in doing that role, and so you're already off to the races. Whereas if you get cast from a self-tape, and this I don't know because I never have, you're walking into a very unknown setting, and you don't know what they liked about your self-tape because you haven't had any feedback, right? Now, so I wish that would go away. I wish self-tapes would go away because I don't think they're valuable in terms of actually allowing the actor to present themselves in a way that's consistent with what they will end up having to do on the day should they get the part. So there's a disconnect, I think. And I think it lets casting off the hook in terms of saying, look, we got to make some choices. We can look at 500 self-tapes, but we can't have 500 auditions. They actually have to, you know, narrow it down before, so that at least if you go in for an audition, you know you have a 1 in 10 chance or something, you know. But this self-tape, you could be self-taping with 500 other people, and you know, they watch the first 12 milliseconds of it and throw it away. So that to me is a big issue. And I also think the fact that they should have to pay for them.
I like it. I like it. I like it. Katie, I like it. Katie, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's such an interesting, that's like a really hot take, and I do like it. So I guess I come at it from two perspectives. Like, I've been putting myself on tape since I was 8 years old. So that's like well over 20 years at this point. I think to directors, producers, maybe even casting directors watching, I do think people take advantage of actors, specifically if they're putting themselves on tape. Like, I know, having been on both sides of an audition, you know within the first scene if someone's right for the part or not. Do not make actors learn 12 pages of sides. That's like 2 days of their life, and you are going to know within 30 seconds if you like them or not. So that would be sort of my advice to the people making the decisions that are watching this. And then for actors, yeah, there's something that's so liberating about a self-tape because I don't have to be anywhere and I can do it on my own time. So I kind of like that. And I don't have to wear like pants. I can wear like pajama pants on the bottom.
Then you have to do a slate. Makes me crazy.
I don't do slates. I've stopped.
Way to do a good slate.
I've stopped doing slates. I'm like, this is objectifying. Like, just Google me and you know, like what my weight is, you know? But I also can say, as a director, you don't always, I have no control really normally over who I'm seeing on a self-tape, but I just directed a movie of the week, a Lifetime movie. And for each role, often like a 5-line role, I was sent like 20 tapes. And that is so overwhelming and sort of unfair because I felt like I watched every single one and I made notes because I am an actor. So I know how hard it is. But I thought, how can I possibly keep this all straight? And I would be probably a director in the best position to keep all of this straight. So I do feel like casting has to be a little revolutionized. Like, don't make actors learn 15 pages, try to limit your choices. Because at the end of the day, like, we need to respect these, you know, people's time. You're right. We should be paid. Why are we doing this for free? It's insane.
Well, and you know, they used to have the budget to make a casting session where they have to hire an actor to be a reader, and they'd have to hire a camera person and whatever. Yeah. Now they don't have to do that. And you got actors buying backdrops and lighting and ring lights and all this kind of stuff. I just think, you know, the power is not equal and it's not right.
You know what's interesting when you talk about power? And I've had this thought, I'm an aggressive, bra-burning feminist. Nice to meet you guys. We need more diversity when it comes to casting directors. No shade to them, they are lovely human beings, but a lot of them have been also doing it for a long time. And with that, I think sometimes, like when you talk about innovation, like changing things up, it's easy to get a kind of in a vibe. And I think they say that like if there's a marginalized population and when you work to make the space more equitable for this population, everybody benefits. And so my biggest thing, I think, especially as like a Black woman, like, again, and I like get this problem a lot where like I get sides and then it's like they're dropping G's. So I'm like, oh, I know what I'm doing here. And like that is my biggest thing where I'm like, why should I have to do that in order to like, and like I can, but I'm like, why can't I just talk like this? Why can't, like, a lot of the times, like I'll ask my agent to push me for a breakdown that doesn't have, like, sometimes the breakdown has like open ethnicity, but I'm also like, if it's not like a family kind of playing type thing, why can't I go out for the white girl? And like, it's like things like that kind of bug me, which I think needs to be revolutionized. But I think when you add more people to the pot that are casting with varied perspectives because they come from different backgrounds, I think in some ways course correction happens. And like even us having this discussion as actors being like self-tapes are dumb, but like also like I love a self-tape too. It's like, how do we find a middle ground where it's like having the option to tape or having the option to audition like would be helpful? Because like one of the things for me, it's like in my filmmaking, like I usually just work with who I know, who I like, and who I trust. And I feel like as an actor, if you get to walk in and you get to like get into a callback for a director session, you get to like, there's a vibe, you get to like talk to a person. And like, as you were saying, Sujit, like if you book off a tape, and I don't think I've ever booked off a tape. You get to like, when you get to the audition, you get to talk and like, you don't get to just walk in not knowing what you're doing if you do book off the tape. Like, there's a shared experience, there's an opportunity to get to know each other, because at the end of the day, this is art and art is intimate. And so you have to be curating a space where people can be intimate with each other. And I don't mean like physical intimacy. I mean, just like being able to say, hey, did you like that? How do you feel about this? Can we change this up? And when, I guess for myself, when I think about like, for my, like, if I ever were to run a casting, because I'm like very indie, it's like, I want to get to talk to the person to know like what the vibe is and like what they're bringing and like getting to like make a decision together. And I feel like in some ways self-taping, like it kind of erases the connection, which, and I'm like, if this whole medium is all about us being connected to each other, like we got to do better in some way. So that's
well, you know, the problem is I once auditioned for John Badham, and John Badham directed Saturday Night Fever. And I walked into the room and the only person in the room was John Badham. And it was not for a big part. It was just him. He was leaning against the table and he said, hello, and he shook my hand and he made me feel like I was the most important thing in his day.
right.
And I read for John Badham and he read the lines opposite me and he just, you know, gave me 110% of his time and attention. And that's what you really want. Now, a self-tape is 185 million degrees, not that.
Mm-hmm. And it's interesting when you say that, because it's also like, when we speak to filmmaking, like the idea that like you can walk into a room and like talk to somebody, like the human exchange is there, but a part of me, I don't hate self-tapes, because like I like wearing my sweatpants on the bottom as well. But I guess in a nutshell, it just sounds like there is something to be said about the fact that you cannot, like what you get between two people organically, and like the attention that you get from a person, like it's like, I feel like it's respect. And that, like, if you're one of 500 people taping, it kind of makes you feel like you are expendable. And maybe it's also kind of like when it comes to the industry looking at actors, like us recognize, like the industry recognizing that like when you ask an actor to come and bring their soul to bear, not everybody can do that. And I think,
but the other thing is you know, the job is to be a creative collaborator.
Mhm.
So if you walk onto the set, I remember I do a show called Transplant, and which is on NBC and CTV, just a little plug. And I remember we were shooting this one episode, and the series regular who I do a lot of my scenes with noticed that I was like really friendly with the director. And she said, well, I guess you've worked with him before. And I said, no, I just met him. Like literally that right then. Because it was important for me and that director to make a connection and to be able to become creative collaborators instantly. Now I already had the job, so I didn't have to get the job. But if you go through this, self-tape process, that's not going to prepare you for that creative collaboration that has to happen instantly, and that connection and that simpatico, and so that you're all working on the same story on the same page. And that to me is what I'm deeply concerned about, this preponderance of self-tape, because we have an entire generation of actors now who only know what self-tapes are. And when they go on set, I've worked with them, and they don't even know who the director is. Right. And so like my co-star, that's where she's coming from. She's much younger than me. She's only done the self-tapes, and she was, there was a gap between her and the director, even though she'd been there a lot longer than I was. And I just show up, and I know to make an instant connection with the director, because I know that's my job.
Right. And I think it's also like the idea of being invited to a space, and it's like, I think if you're able to establish a connection beforehand, you're like empowered to do that, because like an actor might not. I've definitely felt like that, where I don't feel empowered to say hello to anybody, because I'm kind of like, oh, okay, I'm here to do a job.
Here's the thing: you got to go on set like they work for you, and everybody works for you.
Of course,
and everybody wants that. Everybody wants you to act like everybody's there to help you.
Right, but I feel like it's also like for emerging talent, and it's like. And I kind of still, I don't really call myself emerging that much anymore, but I do think there's something to be said about like a person coming to a place as opposed to being invited, like having people know your name, and like the idea that like I should also, me walking into a situation, try and learn people's names. Like we're all making something here. And I think in some ways, sometimes that gets lost in general. And I guess it sounds like self-taping doesn't help this. And I guess wanted to transition to, because we're going to be wrapping up shortly. A couple of questions when it comes to like how filmmaking in Canada has kind of like, how has sorry, Vern. Have you kept your career in Canada or worked abroad? Yeah. Well, I guess I'm curious about like how, okay, sorry, I'm stuffing it. Sorry. We're just going to wrap up with this question. I have a hard out at 3. Got it. Cool. We're wrapping up. We're wrapping up with this question. What advice? Okay. Resetting. Sorry, Brian. Yeah. So I guess like we can move on to like the last bit as we wrap up, which is what advice do you guys and myself maybe have for actors that hope to wear more than one hat one day?
My advice would be, no one is going to tell you that you can. So take ownership of what you want and where you want your voice heard.
Yeah.
My other piece of advice would be, any way that you're trying to diversify is only going to make you more talented as an actor. So I would say I had, and again, I'll reiterate, I came at this from like an extreme position of privilege, and so many people told me I could not be a writer and a director. So many people told me I could not play twins in my movie. But I did it. And it's because I just didn't take no for an answer. And I think that the only way that you really succeed in this industry or get to do what you want to do is to just keep going. Like there'll be a million doors shut in your face. Just keep persevering and keep going. And so that's always the advice that I would give to emerging talent or actors who want to be more than just an actor, is like, just insist and keep trying. Shoot it on your iPhone.
And it's interesting as you say that, because like for me, actually, I'm hearing the drilling again. Maybe Sujit, you can give your 2 cents on like advice you'd want to give emerging talent who hope to wear more than one hat.
Well, the story of my career is I was a writer who, I wanted to be in the business, and I didn't have a movie camera, and I didn't have an uncle who was a producer, and I was a brown guy from Saskatoon. So I didn't even have a role model as to somebody I could say, oh yeah, that guy got into the business, so I could too. So, but I did have, and this is how old I am, I had a typewriter. And I read a couple of screenplays, and then I wrote a little script. And that's how it started. And a lot of things happened that were luck and serendipitous and couldn't be planned again. And I don't know how you break in now, because the way I did could never happen today, but that's how it started. So if you don't start, it will never happen. And everybody's story is different. So no matter what you do, it's the right thing to do. Because if it's the wrong thing, you'll change it anyway. That's step one. But part and parcel with that is what I just said. I read. And the one thing that I think a lot of, as you call them, emerging talent lacks is a body of knowledge of what we have done as an industry, as a culture. Read, I've got 600 screenplays on my hard drive. You can get them all for free now. Back when I started, you had to go to a bookstore and buy them, and there were only one or two that existed because nobody read screenplays and nobody published them. Read, and there's no excuse for not knowing what's gone on. It's not knowing, there's no excuse for not deconstructing every great film ever made so that you know how they worked, so that when you're writing your script, you're not reinventing the wheel.
It's interesting.
And that to me is probably the biggest gap that I see is people who think they know it all. and then I go, well, I've seen that before. And that's the hardest thing, because you only get one kick at the can, right? If you deliver a script to somebody, you get a shot, and you meet Steven Spielberg in the elevator and you give him your script, you want it to be something that they've never seen before, that's so great. And until you know what's been done, you're not going to be able to do that yourself. So that's what I would say, read.
I think it's interesting when you talk about reading, because I'm like, I think sometimes with these titles, we forget that they are jobs because of like the glitz and glam. And like my conceit is that like the glitz and glam of film and TV only exists because filmmaking is tough and it's not glamorous, and it's not like, you know what I mean? We glamorize it because like when you're actually doing it, like if you're just waiting in your trailer to be needed on set, or like you're learning lines, or like, it's just like, it's hard work. And like a lot of industries don't work as days that are as long as we do. And so with that, I think one time I was talking to Warren Sonoda actually, and he said, we need to know our industry. Like, so I think for emerging talent, it's like, understand the industry, but also try and understand the Canadian industry. That means like, if you want to be a filmmaker, learn about the granting system. Like in America, I'm down here right now, and like, I'm like, I won $200,000 with the IPF. And they're like, you won money? And I'm like, yeah, thank you. And so it's like, get familiar, like, obviously I'm very, very grateful. Don't get it twisted. But like, I think it's, as you say, like read, get familiar, and understand that like, if you want to be a writer, if you want to be a director, and also if you want to perform, it means that like, these are jobs, and it's just more work if you want to take up these, to step into these, to wear these hats. And like, for me, like one of the biggest things, like what Katie was talking about, was that a lot of times people will be like, people will say, no, you can't do that. And like, people will tell you no. And like, also just get used to it. And it's frustrating. Like I had a feature at a lab, and then I was like, so I'm working on a feature called Seahorse that I want to write, direct, and star in. And someone was like, I don't think you can do both. And I was like, well, did you ask me any questions about how I intend to do that? And so I think it's being prepared to work more, because these things are jobs. So if you want to direct, understand what a shot list is, understand like what an axis is. And I'm not saying that in a rude way, but I'm saying like, you're just going to be prepared to work more. It'll be rewarding, but it's hard work.
I also think that there's a big gap. I mean, I meet a lot of young actors auditioning for a show I'm in or something like that, and they've never seen the show. They've never seen. I mean, I know a lot of young actors who've never watched any Canadian shows, yet they're based in Canada. I mean, they know primetime US, or they know Marvel movies, but they're auditioning for Canadian shows, but they don't know the Canadian marketplace, right? They don't know what that show is that they're auditioning for. They've never seen it. And so I think that's another thing, which is, if you're going to be in the business, know the business. You got to see at least one episode of everything so that you know what's being done, who's doing it, how they're doing it, what is a Run the Burbs episode like versus Children Ruin Everything. Those are the two big sitcoms that are on now. You're going to be up for one or both. They're not the same show, so you don't want to be delivering the same kind of thing. You know, well, you got to deliver in your audition for Run the Burbs something that's Run the Burbish versus what you do for Children Ruin Everything. You know, they're not the same show. And I can't tell you the number of people I know who've never seen either of them, and yet they're auditioning for them. That makes no sense to me.
Which is fair. And so I think also, I apologize for the drilling. So I think maybe we can kind of like wrap it up there. But maybe Katie, because there's drilling, would you like to be the person that kind of wraps it? Can you guys hear the drilling, or is it just me?
I can't.
You can't hear it?
Hear it, no.
Oh my God. Okay. It's like, anyway. Okay. Well, then I guess I'll just wrap up here. Well, it was like really great and like stimulating to talk to you both about like your experiences behind the camera. And it just feels like you're just creators. And as going back to the beginning, what Sujith said about like, it's storytelling, it's just a different format. And I think that's maybe like to leave it with like to end this, it's like, that's one of the biggest things. It's like, if you're going to wear these different hats, yes, there's work. Yes, people will tell you no, like understand the industry, all that kind of stuff, but it's the same thing across all the boards. And like, the vibe is I do many things. And I think it's stepping into the power and your confidence of like, I do many things. And you guys both really do like live in your power. And I think it's because filmmaking has also helped empower you. So thank you guys both so much for being here and for chatting. I am in awe of both of you and still trying to figure out how old Sujith is.
I'll never tell. I'll never tell.
Honestly,
I
like,
play younger than I am. Let's put it that way.
I knew you kept mentioning your age. I was like, you look very young. Like,
that's what, that's what I think.
don't even
Thank you. Thank you. I'm going to thank my parents for good genetics.
Yeah, thank you so much for having us and me today. And it was really great to speak with you both. And yeah, I hope this is helpful for people who are watching.
Yeah.
Yeah, thanks. It was fun. I appreciate it. And, you know, I know I got on a bit of a rant there, but, you know, I'm a cranky old guy.
It's okay.
Who looks younger than he is.
Who looks younger than he is. So yeah, thank you everybody at home for watching, and I guess go watch the films that these lovely, actually maybe before we go, and I know Katie, you have a heart out, but like if you can plug your films one more time that are going to be playing at CFF.
I don't know if I have a film at CFF. Am I in something? Nobody told me. I don't know.
Ashgrove. Ashgrove is
Oh,
playing.
is Ashgrove playing at CNN? I didn't know that.
I don't know if they told you yet. Sorry about
No,
that.
they didn't tell me. They only told me it was at the Glasgow Film Festival. All right, Ashgrove, yes. Ashgrove is a very interesting feature film that's playing at the CFF, and I'm very happy to be in it. It's got a fantastic cast. It was an experimental film in how it was made, and I think the making of documentary is almost as interesting as the movie, but the movie's, I think, is very cool. So I hope you check it out. And
Katie, before you go.
Yeah, so my film is called We're All in This Together. It's based on the best-selling Canadian novel of the same name. A woman goes viral after going over a waterfall in a barrel, and her dysfunctional family has to come back together and deal with the aftershock of all of that. And I play sort of the prodigal twins who you find out through the course of the film have a lot of reasons to be estranged.
Wait, she goes over Niagara Falls in a barrel and the family's dysfunctional?
Is too, yeah, the whole family. But there's an incredible Canadian cast, and I think I got some really spectacular performances. So I would love if you guys saw it, and follow me on Instagram if you did, and let me know what you think. Katie Boland 13.
Whee! Thank you guys so much. I don't know. I feel like we have a submission, but I don't know if it was programmed, which is like, that's weird. But yeah, I don't have anything. I've had something at the CF once upon a time. I'm just happy to be here. So yeah, thank you guys both so much. And I guess we can wrap it here.
Thank you guys.
Sit back, relax, witness the greatest. It don't get better than this.